What's going on, good people? This is your boy Knock Rio coming to you on a beautiful Friday night here in Rio de Janeiro. Uh, Looks like it's going to be an active night. People are already playing music and all those types of things. So looks like it should be a fun night. So I got home today and I wanted to kind of put together this video. I was submitting a lot of my tracks to TuneCore this last few days. I probably submitted about 46 or 47 tracks. Only one of the tracks right now needs some work. I think it was because the tail end of it, there was some space on the tail end that I didn't realize was there. And so, it's against the rules to have that much space on the end because, places like Spotify and, Amazon Music and all these other people, Apple Music and all those people, they have guidelines for how you need to submit your music. And so TuneCore sent that one back to me. And so I just needed to kind of, take a look at it again. And I felt like, maybe I want to remix this one because this is an older track. And when I listened to it, I was like, well, maybe it could benefit from the stuff that I normally do. So what I did was I opened up the file. I keep everything. I always keep all of my instrument files and, the MIDI files and all that stuff together. I keep all that stuff because you never know when you need to go in and do some work on it, or maybe you're listening to it and you want to make, some changes to it or something. Or if you need to prove ownership of the track, and that you actually did the work. If there's some kind of dispute or whatever, you've got the MIDI files, you've got the actual files of you putting together the beat, which someone else who's saying they did it or it's their track or something, they're not going to be able to refute that you have the original files. So it's good to always keep your original files archived somewhere. So I just went back into my external drive and pulled up this track, and we're all set to go. Now, one thing I did notice here for the tracks is I've got some MIDI going. My X sub on the top here, this top track here is MIDI. But I noticed there's two instruments here. I mean, two tracks here. There's this MIDI track, and then there's the instrument track. And that's kind of the old way that I used to work in Cakewalk. And so when I went in there and took a look at it, I think yesterday evening, I was like, okay, this is a lot different than what I typically do and what it typically looks like now. I typically only have one track, and it combines the instrument and the MIDI track. Let's see, maybe we can see that. If we go to Insert and we go to Soft Synth, we just are going to stick, say, maybe this Monster Synth in there. When you bring up this menu, it's going to say a simple instrument track, or you can get an instrument track per output. You can get a MIDI source, then a synth track folder. Lots of options there. So typically I just click on simple instrument track, and it's the MIDI and it's the MIDI track all as one. It's not a separated MIDI and instrument track. And so that's how it is now. But before, you used to be able to separate it, I guess. And that's how it was working. And I think that was a harder way to work than it is now. I like the process that I have now. But for some reason, when I'm actually playing the song, the instrument track doesn't seem like it has any volume. I see the volume and the movement on the MIDI tracks, but I don't see it on the audio tracks too much. So that makes it difficult for me to use my sends because on my MIDI tracks, the pure MIDI track, there is no send because there's no audio. And then when I set up the sends for the audio tracks, there was nothing coming through those tracks. So I was like, you know what, forget that. I'm not going to worry about the old process. I have all of the information. I have the tracks here. As you can see, I don't know, some of them are MIDI, and then we have the drums, which are all audio tracks from track basically 3 to 6. Those are all actual audio tracks, and you can see that because they've got the little audio symbol right here. So those are just pure audio tracks where I was putting one shots in, and I'll go ahead and pop that open so you can kind of see. I typically was putting one shots in by hand. I kind of knew, where I wanted to put them. and I would take the one shot basically drum sample and put it in by hand. And that's this work that you see here. Looks like a cymbal. This is our hi-hat, obviously. This is our clap. This is our kick drum here. So that's how I was doing a lot of my drums before. Now I'm doing them a lot more in MIDI, but I can still drag in one shots if I need to or whatever. So sometimes it's cool to do that. It's fun to do it that way. So, either way, like I said in my last video, there's no real rules to this. You just do whatever works for you, whatever is in your workflow at that time, whatever you have the patience to do, because not everybody has the patience to drag in one shots. Some people just need to play it with their fingers and keep going. So whatever works for you, whatever makes the job easiest for you is best. If you're dragging in a loop, you're dragging in a loop. There's no real rules to it. There's no real rules for how you're going to accomplish this task. But you have to be comfortable in what you're doing. And so one of my plans is to mix in Mixbus. I have Mixbus 7 software. I just like the way Mixbus sounds. To me, it just sounds very unique, very analog, a lot warmer than typically what you find in Cakewalk and some other DAWs. So it just sounds that way for me. So I don't have a huge amount of experience mixing in it, but I figured there's no time like the present getting started and trying to learn it. So this became an opportunity. I said, you know what, since my sends aren't working the way that I want to, my buses aren't working the way that I want to in Cakewalk, and I'm not seeing what I'm seeing, I'll just dump all of this down to audio tracks and I'll dump it into Mixbus. So that's basically what I did. It dumped with the effects and everything that I have, so I probably won't need to do a whole lot of that on Mixbus. I probably won't have to put a lot of effects on the main tracks. I just want to run them to the buses, run them through my DBX 160, which I kind of like to do. And then we're going to take a look at the mastering chain, see if we're going to use that or not, because the mastering chain was on the dumped out files as well. So I don't know if we're going to use, the total mastering chain or what we might do to kind of boost it, or do we turn it back or what? I really don't know yet. I'm just kind of like, going along with it, and going to see what exactly occurs. Like I said, I don't have a lot of experience mixing in Mixbus, so I don't know exactly what's going to happen here. I've played with it and I've used it to do some of my mastering and stuff like that. I've used it for that. So I'm kind of familiar with it, but I don't know everything about it. So, I won't be able to give you every, tool that it has, but we're going to be able to see, kind of learn together and see what's in here. Pretty much each of these tracks is set up like a regular board, like maybe a Harrison board would be set up. You've got your effects up top here, your EQs, comps, all that kind of stuff there, compressors. You've got an EQ here that you can turn on and off. And then here are your EQ knobs here. I think on the channel strip, they run about 15 dBs. From -15 to plus 15 on the top nodules here, and then on the bottom it's kind of telling you what the frequency is here as well. You've got your mixed buses here, so you can select which bus you want to activate. You select that, and then your sound is going to go towards that bus, and then you can turn it up or down, how much you want to send to that actual bus. You've got your pan here. And then let's see, what's this here? Not really sure what that is there. This is my eyesight. It's failing me right now from where I'm sitting to see exactly what that is. But then you have the name of the track here. You can double click. You can double click in here and change the name of the track too, or right click and rename, and then you can change the track. You can change the color as well, I guess. Let's see if we can do that. I don't know. Let's pick this blue. I like blue. Let's pick that. Changes the color of the name, I guess. So you could decide what colors. Oh, I noticed these colors kind of transferred over too from Cakewalk. Wow, that's interesting. So I think so. Who knows? But they're all different colors. You can change them how you want. I don't know. Maybe it transferred. Maybe it didn't. But you can duplicate tracks, all that type of stuff here. Change the inputs and outputs. You can save it as a template. All that stuff. You've got a mute. You've got a solo here as well. I already checked the mutes in Cakewalk. When I was hitting mute, the tracks would disappear in this view, but here in Mixbus doesn't look like that happened. So maybe I can mix with the mutes on. You've got your normal fader here. That's going to pretty much sit at 0 for right now. And then we'll figure out, how to ride the fader down once we kind of look at our levels and see where they are. I kind of like the levels where they were. I think, we might make the track just a little bit brighter. So the highs that we might be working with as we make them brighter or run them through the buses, we don't want them to overwhelm the track. And I think that's a problem that I had before. It was kind of touchy because I wanted the drums to shine. I noticed when I was playing back, the 808 wasn't coming out to where I wanted it to be, but the kick drum and the snares were pretty good. I wanted the hi-hat to come out some. But previously, when I was listening to reference mixes of it, I noticed that the instruments were a little too high. So I had turned them down, and now when I play them in Cakewalk, it just seems like they're almost not there. But like I said, I don't have a great mixing environment here and a monitoring setup here. So I can't really tell. So I just have to kind of feel it out, place it, in there where I think maybe it should be all right, and then listen to it in the headphones and then make adjustments. That's pretty much what I do. So that's pretty much it. There's a compressor here. There's a makeup gain right here as well for each channel here. They've got a trim here as well. They've got a leveler. You can choose a leveler, compressor, or a limiter for the after the fader here as well. So there's lots of things on this channel, and I like it because it is set up like an analog board is set up, and you can have everything kind of right in front of you. You can add your effects here. You just right-click in this black space, and you add a new plugin. You can have favorite plugins, or you can go to the plugin selector and add whatever plugins you need. They're all on this list. You can do VSTs and production in here too, but I didn't get this software to do production in. I like my workflow in Cakewalk, and I'll be adding like MPC beats to Cakewalk as a place where I do the drums, and I can use FL Studio. I keep saying Florida because I'm from Florida, and when I see FL I think Florida, so pardon me for that. But FL Studio, you can use that to do your drums and then have that like just piped into Cakewalk as well. So I'm going to be utilizing those tools to kind of compose and to create and to produce, but using Mixbus to do the final mixes. I like what I do in Cakewalk. I like the mixes that I'm doing in Cakewalk. I'm happy with those, but I'd like to see how it is in Mixbus. I got this software. They run a lot of sales. This isn't the big boy. The big boy is the 32C, I think now, version. The 32C is a little more expensive than this one. I don't know what it runs. Maybe, I don't know, $300, $400 maybe. And I know they run sales on it, I think, sometimes for $199 or $99. You got to watch around Christmas and the holidays or whatever. They always kind of tend to have a sale. This one actually had a sale for like $19. And it came with a bunch of plugins, like I think 19 plugins or something like that. So I got it for like right around $20. And, that was a really good deal. I had been waiting a long time for that deal to come around. When it did, we had, snatched it up because it was a really good deal. And I really wanted to work in their software as well. But it's strange. If you're outside of the US, I don't know if you'll be able to buy it or not. I'm here in Rio de Janeiro, so I was trying to buy it on my card and I never could. And I ended up talking to FastSpring, who they do their work through and their credit cards through or whatever. They couldn't give me an answer why it wasn't going through. My card company basically was saying, no, we've approved it like 3 times. We don't know why the charge isn't going through. So it's something in their system. I guess they don't like when you're outside of the U.S. to purchase it, which is kind of weird. Or maybe it's the IPs coming from Brazil or something. They blocked them or something. I don't know. But it was really strange. It was just no one could ever give me an answer why I couldn't buy it. So I went like a year, and then all of a sudden I seen it pop up. And my friend in the U.S. was kind enough to actually buy it for me on a U.S. card, and that worked out pretty well. We got it right away. So I waited a long time to have this software. So and it's kind of been sitting in my computer waiting, to be utilized. So I'm going to stop talking here. I'm going to start jumping in here, doing some work, and just see if we can get our levels to kind of sit right. I kind of like where it was, so where we dumped it from, it should be fine. I don't think we're going to do a whole lot to it. I just wanted you to see something different even than Cakewalk, so that you can understand what other things I'm trying to do and understand my full process, which is to create in Cakewalk, maybe MPC Beats and FL Studio, and then dump all that down in audio and mix it out in Mixbus. That's kind of what the process I want to have for my studio. So I'm going to stop talking here and let's get to work, and let's see what we get. Okay. All right. Hang in there with me, guys. And, subscribe to the channel if you can. I definitely appreciate that. That's going to help us in the long run going forward. But let's get to work. All right. Thank you. Okay, so I kind of got things in a place where I feel like I need to go ahead and listen to it in my headphones, kind of get a reference point for where things are at. Like I said, it wasn't far off from where I wanted to be anyway. I really want to bring up that bass. I don't have any idea really what it sounds like. I can just barely hear it peeking out of the mix here, but I know that it's a lot louder. That rumble's probably a lot louder. I did put the MH thump on it, and so I don't know that plugin. I just couldn't find my Cymatics, my Diablo light in here, so I gotta figure out where that is and add that to the list of plugin folders that need to be searched when they're looking for my VSTs. So without that, I said, well, let me try the MH thump because I remember that is something that kind of brings out the low end or whatever. So let's go ahead and take a look at that. And so I kind of wanted to make sure that the synths were up higher than they were in the previous mix in Cakewalk. Maybe I overdid it. I'm going to find that out when I go back and listen to it. I did run everything pretty much through the DBX 160s, except for the bass stuff or the low end stuff. Everything else kind of went through the DBX 160. You can see how that popped it right out. I went back through the mastering chain as well, just kind of looking at those settings just to see if anything needed to be adjusted there. And like I said, I just trust my ears. I'm just going to trust my ears, go back and listen to what I hear. Maybe it sounds like trash and it needs to be worked on. A lot of times that happens. Like you'll mix it and you'll think everything sounds good in the monitors, but then you'll turn around and maybe, you put on the headphones or you play it in your car or something. It sounds horrible. But what I've learned over time is that pretty much everything can be worked through. Most everything that you have an issue with, especially if you chose good sounds to begin with, those issues can be worked through. So you can actually go through and see what's going on with it and make changes that will fix it. The one thing that I will say was my issue from the very beginning was mixing levels too loud. So not really kind of using any type of gain staging or anything like that and just mixing from a loud place already and not giving enough room up top, so everything that you do sounds a bit squashed. And when I started mixing individual tracks at lower volumes, you'll see, especially in Cakewalk, you guys see where I ride my gains down a lot. And then I really don't move the faders a whole lot. I'll ride the gains down. And then if I have to move the faders, I'll move the faders just a touch, just to kind of mix everything in. But yeah, when I started mixing at lower levels and bringing down those gains and having my kick kind of hit right around the -6 to -3 area, my sub bass to hit probably around -15 to -12 to start out with. I always kind of get it in that area, and they kind of tend to sit where I need them to sit. And then I can adjust from there, but that's kind of the place where I like to start them, at least in my Cakewalk mixes. That's kind of where they seem to be. And then I just kind of fit everything else around it. I tend to put my synths and stuff up a little too high, maybe my hi-hats, even my snare. Everything seems to be a little too high. So I kind of bring everything back. I've kind of trained myself to kind of dial everything back, dial the volumes down, and give myself room to work. And that kind of opens up your mix a little bit. And by the time you get to the master fader, I might even turn that gain down, -6, -9, just depends on where I want to be, and give room for my mastering to kind of come in and do its job. I don't like anything clipping. I like everything down low, and then we kind of see if we can open up the mix some, get it to open up a little bit, and then we put our mastering chain on or whatever, and that way. It's not a mix in a huge studio or anything like that. So we tend to, I don't tend to overdo it. I just want it in a place where when the artist is listening to it, they can feel the energy of it. And they can turn it up in the car, and it's not horrible when they turn it up in the car. It ain't going to be perfect. Their vocal needs to still sit on it. But they've got to be able to feel like they can fit on the track and feel like it might be something when they get finished recording the vocals on it. So we want to do a fairly good job at it, but we don't want to do too much. We're just trying to get it into a place where they can write to it and feel comfortable and feel like, okay, I might have a hit here. So I'm going to go back and listen to this and check out where I am with it. You got to see a little bit of Mixbus. At the end here, I ran this loudness analyzer and normalizer. So you can run that, and then they give you a conformity analysis. And they tell you kind of where you are. What does it conform with? With a green check, it conforms with these things. A yellow check is kind of like it's close but not quite there. So you're not really conforming. And then, maybe if there's a red check or something like that, you're definitely not conforming. You're too far out of bounds. But the nice thing about it, let me go ahead and cancel. I'm going to cancel out of this. You can kind of, we can go to the analysis report. Here's the analysis report. It's going to give your decibels, like your peak and your true peak here on the side. Typically, these are a bunch lower. Your integrated LUFS. So typically, I think the Apple ones, look at this. We got all X's down here. So this doesn't fit for any of the streaming platforms that we typically use. Doesn't even fit for CD and DVD. That's telling me that probably what the hell is going on? These kids are screaming outside. That tells us that tells me that probably my bass is probably way too loud for where it needs to be. But I'm going to go back and listen to it anyway. The nice thing about this, though, is you get this when you dump your master. I know that this is probably too high. It should be like -15, -16 for Apple. So I'm going to cancel this really quick. I'll show you like when you go to dump the session, I go to session and I go to export, and I'm going to export to an audio file. It gives me options here. Let me put this in the middle of the screen so you can see it here. Here's the Amazon Music option. I can add another format, and that format can be what I need it to be. Here's my list. I can make it an Apple Music format. I can go here, add another format, and change this Apple Music one to maybe MP3. So I can dump an MP3 session at the same time. I can dump a SoundCloud and Spotify session. And then they have a YouTube and a Deezer. So all of these can be dumped at the exact same time when you're doing your export. Doesn't take a super long time either. They give you a streaming file that will be good for all of those different platforms because those different platforms can require different ones. I tend to use the Apple Music one because it tends, I like the Apple Music one because it tends to cover all of the formats. Except for sometimes like SoundCloud's, maybe SoundCloud. It may not cover SoundCloud sometimes, but I don't really worry about that. But it covers Spotify and YouTube and Deezer. It's going to be close enough for Spotify anyway. So I tend to use the Apple Music one. Like I said, those LUFs are like -16 or something like that most of the time. I will pretty much just dump the Apple Music, and then I'll dump an MP3 too so that I have a smaller file size. What I noticed in Harrison Mixbus 2 is the file size when you dump these is not as big as the Cakewalk one. So this file I think was about 66 megabytes when I dumped the WAV file at 2432. Or not 2432, what am I talking about? 48 kilohertz, and then 32-bit. I dump it in Cakewalk at that setting. And so I noticed that the file is about 66 megabytes. But when I do this and I dump it in like my Apple Music WAV file, it'll come back and it's probably going to be 50 or under, I would imagine. It cuts off a lot of it. I don't know why that is just yet. But it tends to keep my file sizes down a little bit smaller and not really with compromising the sound at all. So that's another thing I like about this program. That's why I like Mixbus, because I can dump all these formats at the same time. If I need the MP3 for something, I can use the MP3. If I need the Apple for something, I use the Apple one for something else. And then I've got CD options. I've got, multiple other options. I got a ringtone option here. I can select those and add all those formats and dump them. I don't know if there's a limit to how many formats you can do, or if you could do all of them if you needed to. I don't know, because I've never pushed it to the limit, but I've done maybe at least 5 different formats at one time, and that worked perfectly fine. And it will give you, it gives you the analysis too, that same analysis we looked at. If this check mark is on here, you check this box, it's going to give you that analysis for each one of those as well. So you can look at the analysis of it if you're into that. So I like this. I like this program. I like kind of working in it for the little mastering stuff that I've done in it. And now I want to start like my mixing process. So, if it doesn't sound 100% great, there's two reasons. One, I haven't worked in it a whole lot. Number two, I don't know what it sounds like because my monitoring is not quite correct here. So I have to listen to it, go back, and then make my adjustments. Maybe it sounds like trash, who knows? But at least you can see the process and you can see certain, things that I was able to do. Do I want to export this? Yeah, maybe I'll go ahead and export it. I'm just going to choose the Apple Music one because I pretty much like that. So I'm going to select that. It's going to drop it in Mixbus. I can actually change this. I'm going to actually change this to my desktop. I'll just change it to desktop. I can create the label here. We can go with the session name. Yeah, we can do that. I can go with the session name. It doesn't matter to me. And that's the name that will come out. If you want to make a revision, you can do it here as well. You can add a date and a time on it as well too. So lots of little options here that they thought about, which is really kind of cool. So, when you hit the export, it doesn't take a huge long time to do that. You can export in real time, or you can export, through the system as well. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. If you guys have any questions, or you have any comments, or if you've worked in Mixbus and you have any suggestions, or you're interested in working in it and have some questions, definitely feel free to put that in the comments here so that we can all learn. Like I said, I'm in a learning stage. I'm coming back to music after a long time as well. So I'm learning too. It's never, this game, you always are learning. You're always learning. You're always finding new ways to do things, new processes. So don't be afraid to learn. Jump right in there and knock it out, So once again, this is your boy Knock Rio. I hope you enjoyed what you saw tonight. Hopefully I didn't take too much of your time. And it's the weekend, so I hope you guys enjoy your weekend. It's the weekend where we are, Friday night. So hopefully you're getting off work and headed on into the weekend and have a great time. So thanks once again, and signing off from Rio de Janeiro is Knock Rio. Have a great one. Peace.